A lot of these people are always trying to look for this cheat code, like suck on ashwagandha leaves and I sit in a cold tub for 3 days. And I'm like, well, you're missing the biggest biohack of all, which is exercise. Start doing that, and then a lot of this other shit could be just additive.
Where does the motivation come from? How do you stay motivated? I'm not motivated all the time. Usually it's like I just have to take the action, and then the action precedes feeling motivated. But do you have any like tricks for motivation?
I think the gateway drug for most people is finding a gym routine that they enjoy. Exercise is now like hygiene. You wouldn't go a day without taking a shower. You wouldn't go a day without brushing your teeth. Why would you go a day without exercise? Because that's the most important component. There's really no downside to exercise but showing up to the gym.
We need to work out for our health, for longevity. Like, it's so important. We all know that. And yet I think that we get into these routines that are like really monotonous.
I think a lot of people use exercise and strength training as a form of dieting. It doesn't work like that. You're never going to outwork a bad diet. If you're overeating 600, 700, 800 calories, you're never going to look the way you want.
Since we have summer coming, I know everyone listening is probably motivated because they want to be strong and be healthy and all the things, but we also want to look good. Do you have a universal breakdown, like a workout breakdown that you could recommend for people? Well, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really excited to talk to you.
Yeah.
I would love to go back and talk about your younger life for a minute, because that really informed who you are today, right? And kind of why you do what you do. So can we go back to like young Kenny, and what was that turning point for you where everything changed?
Yeah, the story I always tell, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, to a very Italian family, and I'm looking in the mirror. I was just about to go to an 8th grade birthday party, and everybody at school that day was like, oh, okay, this one's going to kiss this one and that one's going to kiss that one. And I was nowhere mentioned in any of this. So I was like, yo, I got to deck myself out in the best tracksuit I had, because I'm a fat Italian kid and I got to wear a tracksuit. So I'm looking in the mirror and I put my tracksuit on and I'm like, I got these big square glasses, not as cool as these that I have on right now. They were, kind of nerdy. I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, I look terrible. And I said to myself in the mirror, I go, as soon as I get to high school, I'm going to change this. I'm going to work out. And I realized at 12, 13 years old, I go, there's no one that's going to help me with this. My family can't help me. They don't know what's going on. They're out of shape and overweight. And I wanted to look like the people that I saw in movies and comic books and on wrestling. So I go, I just got to start doing what they're doing. I got to start working out. So as soon as I got to high school, right away, I mean, before high school even started, I started playing football, and that starts in the summer, and running and lifting and all that stuff. And I just fell in love with that process. And then I started buying muscle magazines. So by 12, 13 years old, I was like in it and loving it. And then when I got good at it and I understood what I needed to do and I did enough research, I started to want to do it for other people. Like, other people are like, oh my God, you used to be so heavy. Like, there are still friends of mine who are like, dude, I remember when you were a fat kid. I'm like, I know. Yeah. So do I.
They just have to remind you.
Yeah. So, and now a lot of those guys are like, oh, I wish I would have done the same thing, or now I'm heavy and you're skinny. Everybody, it's constant. I hear it all the time. And now opening the gym in New Jersey, I have a lot of guys who I grew up with kind of coming to the gym, and they're like, what are you doing? How do you do it? So I think it's helped my business tremendously.
Mm-hmm. How did you do it then? And is that different from how you do it now?
Absolutely. I think obviously the more I understand, it's like becoming a Jedi. Over the years, you get better at your skill. And I tell people that's why I enjoy doing what I'm doing. A funny story, the other day, my mom gets this letter in the mail, because I still have some stuff sent to my Jersey address. And it was a letter saying that they've been looking for me for the past like 5 years, and that there's some relative of ours that had me as next of kin and had $9.2 million that had to be transferred into my bank. Obviously, this was a scam. However, just toying with the idea of having $9.2 million tomorrow, I was just like, my life wouldn't really change. I would still do what I'm doing because I love what I do. And I realized that at a young age. And the way I did it then was very gritty. I was kind of, it was very bodybuilder style, in the fact that I would open up a can of tuna and just eat the tuna out of the can. Now I'm like, all right, I drifted a little away from that kind of that way of doing things. Kind of similar, I'll have a shake or two a day. just to get in my protein intake. But I learned a lot. I think the answer is still the same. The same way that bodybuilders and people got into shape years ago for like movies, like actors. Like I've read the Sylvester Stallone book that he did with Gunnar Peterson. And, they talk about diet and nutrition, and what he was doing then in the 80s and 90s is still the same stuff that he would do to get into shape for a movie now. So that's where I kind of got a lot of my information from. The Arnold Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. I read that when I was a kid. And, Arnold still talks about the same stuff. The same stuff he was doing in the 70s is the same stuff he does now. So for me, I'm a little more calculated now. I understand a little bit better. Obviously, when you're younger, you could get away with a lot of stuff. I was going out with my friends. When I got to college, I started to like drink a little bit more. When I was in high school and stuff, I didn't really drink that much. And now I don't drink at all, really. Maybe once a month, if that. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff. Like, you want a high protein diet. You want to stay away from the carbs. Like that was probably the first time I did like almost like a keto diet. It wasn't called that at that point, but it was just high protein, very little fat, and just carbs before and after the gym.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the different components to like getting in shape, right? Because we were talking before we started recording, everybody wants to be told what to do. And you can tell people what to do, but then there's another part of that, right? People need to find the discipline, and that's huge. And I know that you talk about discipline a lot, and that's often the biggest hurdle, right? Because we all kind of know what to do on some level, but it's the actual doing it that's the hardest part. So let's kind of break it down to like mindset and then what we actually need to be doing.
As a trainer and a gym owner, I've been doing this a long time, and you run into so many different people at so many different stages of their life. There are people who go to the gym but kind of half-ass it. There are people who've never been to the gym who don't even know where to start. There are people who go to the gym and want to dial it up, who are in great shape and I have a mixed bag of nuts in both gyms and throughout my career. And you just have to meet people where they're at and try to figure out what they need right now. And everybody wants everything right now. I mean, that's society, that's America, that's how things go. But you have to break it down. So for instance, somebody who's never worked out before, I had a guy come in with a full head of steam in January, and he's like, I want to come 5 days a week, loaded. He just got, sold his company. He's like, I got nothing but time. Give me a diet, give me a workout. I go, how old are you? He's like, I'm 44 years old. Have you ever worked out? Judge it by looking at him. He looked like a bag of milk. And I was like, you've never worked out a day in your life. Let's take things one step at a time. I think the gateway drug for most people is finding a gym routine that they enjoy and not doing it right away. Everybody wants to do, all right, I want to come Monday to Friday as much as I can. Start with 2 days. And I want you to kind of long for it. I want you to miss it a little bit so that you come back. So I always start people with 1, maybe 2 days.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
And that makes so much sense.
For sure.
Like always leave wanting more, right?
Of course.
Versus the other way around.
Yeah. And everybody, because burnout happens, right? Everybody's like, well, I'm going to get on this diet that I can't subscribe to because I don't really believe in it yet. And I want to go to the gym, but I've never done this in 44 years of my life. And now I'm just going to do it out of nowhere. So I say, start with 2 days, and then let's lock in that habit for the next 3 to 6 weeks. If you could guarantee that you're going to show up, if you're going to give me 2 hours a week for the next 6 weeks, then we can move on and I could give you something else, whether we give you another day of the week or we start to dial in what we should be eating. But most people can't bite off that much. Most people can't. You don't have any discipline and now you want all the discipline. So it doesn't work like that. So, and then there's other people where I have, younger guys who are in their 30s and stuff who are like, dude, I just want to get shredded this summer. It's like, all right, let me see what you're eating. And when I start to dive into what they're eating, they're relatively good. And then the weekend comes and they're like, well, it's just one day. And I'm like, yeah, but you're having 4,000 calories in the day. You're day drinking all day with your friends, and then you're eating like shit at night. So let's just dial that back. Let's make it one shitty meal if that's what you need to do. And then everything else we need to tighten up. It's taking it piece by piece and meeting people where they're at. And I think it's the way the brain works is that you can't really fathom doing all this. Like you want it all at once, but you really can't process that much. So you need to take it one step at a time. And I try to get people to, little goals, because then if you now, it works on, that the endorphins that you get from accomplishing a goal. Oh, I went twice this week. That's amazing. Great. I could definitely do it because I've done it now. Now I could do it again next week. And now after I know that I could do that for 2 or 3 weeks, and I start racking up these wins. And that's what I tell people, rack up as many wins as you can. Have one good meal, get to the gym an extra day. And then when you start to rack up these wins, now you start to build that discipline in. And now you start to realize how good it feels to feel better. One of the guests I had on my podcast recently, she was just saying, she's like, I wish I could get everyone to feel how good it feels to be strong. And I talk about that all the time. I try to get people to understand that it will infinitely improve your life when you start to do it, but you can't do it all at once. If you came into the gym and you're like, I want to deadlift 300 pounds. Well, I wouldn't put 300 pounds on the bar and have you do it. I would slowly, gradually work you up to a point where within 3 to 6 months, we could get you to that point.
It's interesting. Like it sounds like you need to practice a lot of restraint, which I feel like people don't necessarily think of when they think of
most people don't have
getting shredded or getting in shape or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it gives me a little bit of anxiety because I'm one of those like 0 to 100 people where I do this all the time. Like I fall off and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to like get back, and I'm training with my trainer 3 times a week. Then I'm doing Pilates twice a week, and then I'm doing this once a week, and then I'm doing that. And I have to go 0 to 100, and either I burn out because it's too much, or I don't do it perfectly, and then I get what I call the fuck it's, and I'm like, well, fuck it. I'm like, scrap that plan,
But you're not alone. I think it's taken me, like I said, I started doing this when I was 13, 14 years old, and I've gone through seasons of feeling different ways. Like there are times where I hated working out. I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym so bad. And I've just now, over the course of the last 25, 30 years that I've been doing this, have now came up with different ways that I convince myself to work out. Whether it's I have a training partner, or I have a place that I go, or I try a different gym, or, I've tricked myself into doing it every day. And there are definitely mornings I get to the gym and I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I know like little ways that'll kind of get my heart rate up and I'll feel better. And I just start doing something. And I think that's the biggest problem, is that people don't know how to trigger that part of their body. The hardest thing to do is actually get to the gym. Now, when you're there, especially, I encourage people to take classes where their friends are there, or they can meet people, or there's some sort of, one of the things I say about our gym is that we build muscle and we build community, because you'll never work out alone. You'll either work out with 1 or 2 other people, or you'll work out with me and one of my trainers, because I want people to have some sort of accountability and multiple people checking in with you, being like, hey, you're going, right? Okay, cool. I'm going to go too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, being in the industry as long as you've been in it, how do you keep it spicy? Because I feel like you're just like, am I on this hamster wheel forever? And I feel like a lot of people probably feel that way, whether they're in the industry or not. Like, we're all told that we need to work out for our health, for longevity. Like, it's so important. We all know that. And yet I think that we get into these routines that are like really monotonous. So how often do you recommend people switch it up? And how often are you switching up your own routine?
Well, 2 things. One, I say you have to be somewhat goal oriented, right? You want to have something where you're looking forward to it, whether you want to go run a marathon, or you want to go do a high rocks, or there's some sort of physical component to it that you're looking forward to, that you can mark on the calendar and be like, okay, I'm going to go train for this, or I'm going to do this. That's one way to attack it. The second way is I try to help people understand that exercise is now like hygiene. You wouldn't go a day without taking a shower. You wouldn't go a day without brushing your teeth. So why would you go a day without exercise? Because that's the most important component, right? That's good for brain health. It's good for your skin. It's good for your bone density. It's good for circulation. Like there's really no downside to exercise but showing up to the gym. So I help people understand that. I have clients who are 3 years old. I have clients who are 83 years old. And never in my life, in the years I've been doing this, has anyone ever left the gym and goes, I shouldn't have done that. before the gym, they're like, think of a million and one excuses why they shouldn't go. Oh, I could go drink with my friends. I could go over here. Oh, there's a store. I could go shopping. And you'll get 101 distractions. But as soon as you're there and there's somebody like, hey, let's go, you got to start moving. I think that's what helps a lot of people. Most of the time I tell people, I go, I'm a strength coach, but at the same time, I'm an accountability coach. I make sure you're there. And, you know, some people, if there's money on the line, they're like, oh, I don't want to waste the money. So they show up. Other people, you know, feel accountable to people. Other people feel like, oh, I don't want to stand my trainer up. That's rude and obnoxious to do that. So I think just finding what works for your mentality. I think there's a lot of people. So for me, how I've switched it up over the years, I wrestled and played football in high school and college, right? I wrestled all through college. Then after college, I got into jiu-jitsu a little bit and then started doing endurance racing. After I started doing endurance racing, then I found CrossFit. After CrossFit, I started doing jiu-jitsu again and powerlifting and things like that. So it's been this cycle of different ways to test myself. But for me, what always sits in the back of my mind is I cannot tell people to go and do these things without doing it myself. I can't say to you, hey, you should go run the New York City Marathon. Having never ran the New York City Marathon.
No, not happening.
But I can't tell people to do these things and explain to them the level of difficulty, having never done it myself. I know what mile 15 feels like. I know what mile 19 feels like. In fact, I know how it feels 10 times over. So what I tell people, I go, do different things, put something on the calendar, and a lot of people are always like, summer's coming. Yeah, I have a wedding coming up. Yeah. So it's like, okay, you have this hard stop. Like, hey, I'm going to, so what is in LA?
6 weeks in Europe.
Okay.
June 4th.
Okay.
Let's go.
So
That's
you
where I
got
am right now.
You got something on the calendar.
Yeah.
So now it's like, all right, how do I make this a routine? How do I not break that routine? How do I stay disciplined? And you don't have to, if you enjoy doing Pilates, then I encourage you to do, like the days you don't want to do anything, go to a Pilates class. Go and do it. Go do something. You know, for instance, like with a lot of my clients, they're like, oh, I don't want to be here. It's 5 a.m., 6 a.m. I'm like, all right, let's just throw the ball against the wall or slam it down, or, you know, let's do a couple band press downs or something, because anything will start to get your endorphins going and get your heart rate going. So I give them like little tasks to get them going. You know, pushing a sled. It's just simple things that don't take any skill level, that aren't as daunting as a task, and they just start doing it.
Yeah. I am in a phase right now where I like what you said about accountability. Like I have to have a trainer because I need I like somebody who's going to be kind of mean to me. I have trainers that I have a great relationship with. Yeah. And so they can be mean to me, and they'll text me and be like, hey, what are you doing? Europe in 5 weeks. Like they see what I'm doing on social media and stuff like that. My trainer was like, I need that body perfect. You better be working out today. Like things like that. That motivates me, and I'm paying them. So it's like a double accountability.
It's a double whammy, yeah. No, I have a client who I saw this morning. She had a surgery a couple weeks ago, and she had kind of fallen off. I see this girl 5 days a week, and she's incredible. She does everything I ask her to do, and then she fell off. She had the surgery. She's like, well, when should I come back? I go, now, because if you're wearing a tankini at Dumbo House, I was like, people are going to make fun of you. So get your ass over here. And she was like, all right, I needed to hear that. Because most people do.
Yeah.
Like if I start to fall off, like even I go to this jiu-jitsu gym, and all the guys I roll with, all the guys I'm with, they're like, dude, you haven't done a tournament in like 6 weeks. I'm like, I haven't. They're like, oh, you're getting soft. You're getting old, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, I got to. That was like the kick in the ass that I needed. Most people need that. Everybody's like, oh, that's rude and that's mean. It's like, no, it's not. It's reality, right? It's not a, you know, a lie. We're falling off. We need to hear from somebody who gives a shit about us. Because if your trainer didn't care, I don't think your $200 or $300 is going to make or break the guy, but you know, he's trying to keep you accountable. And most of the time, I even charge my family at my gym in Jersey, and I didn't want to. And I've done that in the past where I let people come for free, but then they don't respect it the same way. So now they're like, I'm paying this money. I have to go. And you're wasting my time. So I have to be there. And I tell them that, like, I don't want your money, but it's the only thing that's going to keep you honest.
Yeah, it's very motivating.
For sure.
And that's another thing. It's like, where does the motivation come from? How do you stay motivated? People probably ask you that all the time. People ask me that all the time. And I'm like, I'm not motivated all the time. Usually it's like I just have to take the action, and then the action precedes feeling motivated. But do you have any like tricks for motivation? Because, we're talking about the hardest part is getting there, right? The hardest part is having the discipline. So where do you get the motivation to have the discipline to get there?
Well, I'm definitely over all the soft bullshit that we've been dealing with over the past 5 years of being like, oh, be nice to everyone. It's like some people need the truth. And I think that's the reality of life is I've done my best work when someone was either mean to me and everybody's like, no, not everyone's like that. Sure. But at the same time, when you hear the truth and it bothers you, one, you either don't care about the truth and you're like, I'm fat, I'm okay with it, fine. Or you're like, hey, that's offensive. It's like, why is it offensive? Because it bothers you and you're not doing anything about it. And you have the power. In the back of your mind, you're like, I know I have the power to do this and I'm not doing it for myself. Why not? Because it's easily accessible. When I was 13, 14 years old in 1996, 1997, there was no influencers teaching us how to do stuff. There was no internet where you could go look up workouts and stuff. You had to figure it out yourself. So if a 13 or 14-year-old could figure out how to do it, then somebody at 40 or 35 in 2025 could easily find a gym, because when I started going to the gym, I would go to either my high school gym or a gym 25 minutes away from my house. Now there's a gym on every corner. There's 4 gyms just in my building. So how you have no excuse not to go. You have 101 different modalities. I mean, there's some of the dumbest shit out there. You could have an app, you could have all these things. Like there are people who would build you a personal program for free. I mean, you go on AI and ask it 100 different questions.
ChatGPT can be your trainer.
Yeah. It's endless about what you could do. I think it's just getting in the right mindset of understanding like, hey, this is something like no one has to tell you like, did you brush your teeth today? You're like, it's gross if you don't. And I tell people, I go, you're fucking gross if you don't work out every day. Oh, that's offensive. I don't give a fuck. It's what you should be doing. It's like, it's gross if you don't shower. Like if you walk into a room and you stink, it's like if you walk into a room and you look like a mess and you're like, everyone's mean to me. It's like you've given them reason to, because you've walked in and this is how you're presenting yourself, right? If your hair was messed up and disheveled, everybody, there'd be 1,000,001 comments. What the fuck's wrong with her? Why is her hair a mess?
They always find things to pick on me for.
Even when there's nothing to pick on,
Yeah.
people will find stuff to pick on.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've had people, the internet always wins.
Oh, yeah.
There are always comments where I'm like, dude, that's pretty good.
They're so clever.
Yeah. There's some nerd
so
in a
clever.
basement in the middle of Nashville or something,
Yeah.
just writing shit about all of us.
God, especially on TikTok. I'm like, I have to hand it to you. That was amazing.
And they'll find the weirdest shit. I'm like, some guys are like, oh, did you see his eyes are kind of crossed? I'm like, are my eyes crossed? I'm looking in the mirror for like 2 weeks straight. I'm like, are my fucking eyes crossed? Yeah,
I had one, this is like such an aside, but I was talking about the time that I went to a Diddy party.
Yeah.
And in the episode, I don't know, it was like my skincare, the lighting, my face was really shiny. And all these people were like, yeah, she still has the baby oil on her face. And I was like, it's amazing. Like, it's so funny.
Yeah. People are clever. I mean, you could only laugh about it because somebody is sitting there having nothing else to do but to shit on you. So it's comedy.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's a compliment.
Yeah.
Take it as a compliment.
I'm glad that people give a shit so much.
So since we have summer coming, I know everyone listening is, probably motivated because they want to be strong and be healthy and all the things, but we also want to look good. So do you have like a universal breakdown, like a workout breakdown that you could recommend for people, whether it's like you're doing this for this many days, understanding that everybody is different, they're starting at different points, and we were talking about meeting people where they are, but like in general, do we want to be doing like strength a few times a week? Do we want to be doing cardio? How do we want to be mixing it? All of that.
Yeah, the way I break down, I was a big CrossFit guy for a long time. Obviously, I was a big endurance guy for a long time. I would do a lot of running and swimming and biking and things like that. What I found works really well, and what I do at both my gyms, and obviously that's what I sell people and that's what I believe in, is the basis of what you do. My gym is called the Strength Club because I want to help people build strength. And you could build strength at any age. You could build strength at 2 or 92. It doesn't matter. Like you could always improve the way you move through the 7 planes of motion. So I would say, and it's way harder. Like I could get you faster in 5 to 6 weeks. It'll take me years to get you stronger. And I tell everyone that. So I was like, strength should be the baseline. Strength should be in everyone's program. If you like doing Pilates and yoga and cycling and all that bullshit, great. Do it. Do it as much as you want. However, the base of your program, the bottom of your pyramid, should be a strength program. 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week, whatever it may be. Do some sort of strength program with someone who knows what they're doing, or find it online. But what I've noticed is that a lot of people are buying into the whole strength idea, but they're lacking the level of intensity they need. So a lot of people are like, oh, I did my weights today and I'm good. Well, there needs to be a certain level of stress and pressure put on the joint to make the diamond that you want to make. So you have to make sure that you're strengthening the muscle to a point where you're asking it to grow, and there needs to be some level of that. Now, I talk about this a lot, and I rarely hear it talked about online, is muscle maturity. When somebody first starts coming to the gym, they look frail, they can't push through movement. However, as you grow and you start to build muscle tissue and you start to build muscle maturity, you get to a point where you could kind of grind through reps and get more out of your exercises. And that's what we want to do. We want to work to a point of either pre-failure or working to a point of failure most of the time. So I say 3-4 days a week at least of strength training. And then you could throw in all the other stuff, because most of the other stuff is accessory work. Should your heart and your lungs be strong? Absolutely. And that's the definition of cardiovascular work. If you want to do cardio work, whether it's a Stairmaster or rowing or running outside, whatever it is, fine. But I think the basis of what everyone should be doing, or I know the base of everything everybody should be doing, is some sort of strength program. I think a lot of people use exercise and strength training as a form of dieting. They're like, oh, this is how I'm going to lose weight. It doesn't work like that. You're never going to outwork a bad diet. If you're overeating 600, 700, 800 calories, you're never going to look the way you want. So your diet needs to be dialed in to a certain degree, and you need to have some sort of strength program. And yes, I want your heart and lungs to be strong, but you don't need as much of that. So in my gym, we have it 2 days a week. We do Wednesdays and Saturdays that we do cardiovascular work. And then on Sundays, I give them the option. You want to come in, you could use whatever you want, do whatever you want. But there's 4 days of strength training and then 2 days of cardiovascular work. And I think that works really well for most people. But don't get it confused. Like, cardiovascular work is just that. Like, when people are like, oh, I'm strength training going to F45. It's like, no, it's mostly cardiovascular work here. So I know like each one's different, but for the most part, you're never working at a high enough threshold to develop muscle tissue, right? And that's why you have a lot of these young influencers and stuff who are now buying into this stuff. They're listening to the guys who really know what they're talking about, and they're going to gyms and they're pushing heavy weight and they're trying hard. And anybody who knows how to strength train will tell you that it needs to be a consistent thing, and you need to develop this over time, and you need to progressively overload to see the results that you want to see. It's not just going to happen. When I tell people when people come to me and they're like, oh, I don't want to put on too much muscle. I mean, I'm sure you've said that or heard that.
Yeah, don't want to get bulky.
Yeah. I'm like, I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
I've been trying since I was 14 to look bulky.
Yeah.
I haven't done it yet. So I'm still trying to figure that out.
I hear that. And then also, like, this does happen to me sometimes too. Like, if I'm pushing really hard, I get puffy.
Puffy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your face.
Explain puffy to me.
Puffy is like, I just feel like I'm like retaining a lot of water. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe I'm not recovering enough or something, but I get puffy. I'm like,
from lifting
this
heavy.
is not, yeah. I'm like, it should be the opposite.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it, right, if you've ever seen that diagram, I'm sure it's all over the internet. Anybody can look it up. It's like 5 pounds of fat and then 5 pounds of muscle. And 5 pounds of muscle is maybe 1/4 of the size of the 5 pounds of fat. So when you have more muscle tissue, it's going to make you a little bit more dense. Now, will you retain a little bit more water? Sure. But no more than if you were heavier, right? You're always going to be better, leaner, and tighter.
Yeah. It's like, it's usually just a period right after the workout for like a day or two. Yeah. And if I'm doing it really consistently, then if I go on vacation or something, then that all goes away. And I'm like, oh, I'm ripped.
Yeah.
But it's like hiding under the puffy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of it is probably like stress and just being in LA.
And I think a lot of times people don't realize that when you are exercising, you're working harder, you're going to retain a little bit more water. You're going to, force blood through the muscle tissue a little bit more. And then you're going to want to eat a little bit more, but your body's going to utilize the fuel better. I compare it to if your body was a car, if you have no muscle on your body, you're like a Honda Civic. You got a 4-cylinder car, right? And it can't utilize the fuel as efficiently. Or you have a Ferrari, which has got a 12-cylinder engine, and now you're pumping gas through the car, so it's going to utilize that fuel more. So when you're taking in too many carbs, well, then you're just leaving gas in the tank. But if you have all this muscle on your body, now you're utilizing fuel. So now, no matter what you're eating, it's going to utilize the fuel better. So you want to, more muscle is always better for longevity, for aesthetics, anything you want out of life. It's going to just improve that. Any doctor worth their own salt is never going to tell you, oh, don't exercise.
You mentioned eating carbs before and after your workout. What other little hacks can you recommend when it comes to nutrition? Because how much of body composition do you think comes down to diet and how much comes down to what you're doing in the gym?
I mean, it comes down. I mean, if you're talking about aesthetics and you want to look a certain way, I mean, 90% of it is what you're eating and how you're utilizing fuel. I think the most important thing is like having some sort of exercise routine, because I went to a couple biohacking events in the last couple months, and a lot of these people are always trying to look for this cheat code, like, oh, I suck on ashwagandha leaves and I sit in a cold tub for 3 days. And I'm like, well, you're missing the biggest biohack of all, which is exercise. Start doing that, and then a lot of this other shit could be just additives. So I think understanding we've gotten the whole, I mean, this is a 3-day argument about the whole food system and everything like that. But food is too readily available nowadays. You walk down the street and right now we walk down 7th Avenue and there's croissants being sold on the side of the street. You walk into a coffee shop, they got cookies and pastries. There's so much shit always around, and we always think we need to be eating. Everybody's like, oh, I'm slightly hungry, I need a chocolate. I'm slightly hungry, I need a 700 calorie Frappuccino. Like, no, being hungry is okay. You could be hungry. It's like, it's another level of stress that your body goes through that's actually good for it. A buddy of mine, I was talking to him the other day, and he's got some gout, right? His diet's not great, but I know it runs in his family. His dad had it and stuff. And I told him, I go, listen, you want to reset your gut right now? I go, just fast for the next 2 or 3 days. You could drink black coffee, you could drink some water, and he's like, dude, it actually improved the way I feel. And I go, 100%, because, everybody fears being hungry because it does feel like shit. I mean, I did a show years ago where they starved us out on an island, and you're like gnawing on your hand because you're so hungry. It feels terrible. But, when you get through a day or two of that, you're like, okay, I don't need as much food as I think I do. So everybody thinks like, oh, you're hungry? Here, let me pull out this giant bag of snacks, and we got Fruit Loops in it and all this shit. So you're like overeating carbs. And if you're not utilizing those carbs within like a 2-hour span, then your body just stores it. So you don't need all these carbs. You don't need as much food and fuel as we think we do. And I don't think we need as much water. The amount of people who come into my gym with water bottles like this and be like, oh, I got to finish 2 of these today. I'm like, where are you going? The
like
Sahara
gallons?
Yeah. They're like, people, you don't need that much water, right? I'll go.
Always the girls too, right?
Oh, the amount of fucking Stanley water bottles I've thrown away in my gym because they get left everywhere. These
and
$85.
You can hear us coming from a mile away, hitting everything.
Every
you know that sound?
They're like lined up on the window. I have like 12 fucking Stanley water bottles. It's like $800 worth of water bottles. And they'll leave them there and they forget them. They're like, oh, I have another one. I'm like, you spend more on water bottles a year than you're probably doing shoes. It's crazy. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. So how much water should we be aiming for?
I mean, I eat when I'm hungry. I drink water when I'm thirsty, but like I don't get at the first sight of a feeling of hunger. I'm not like, oh, I got to crush a Subway sandwich. I'll let it sit for a while. I want that feeling because it's letting my body know, hey, listen, you're alive. You don't need this right away. I'm not going to starve to death. You could go, the longest 3 minutes without air and 3 days without water and 3 weeks basically without food. I mean, there are monks who go days and months without eating. Like, you don't need to eat as much as we think we do. Obviously if your goal is to build muscle tissue, then yes, you need to consume more than what you think you do. But if I'm just trying to sustain and look good, I don't really need to eat as much as people think we do. And we've demonized fat in this country. Everybody's like, oh, I can't have trans fats and this fats and that fats. It's like, fats are a better form of fuel than carbohydrates are. Carbs are like a fast, kind of like kick in the ass, and it's like, okay, I need that. But for the most part, like I said, I mean, build it around your workouts. But other than that, one of the things I was talking about Gab this weekend was she was saying that Gabrielle Lyons, for people who don't, she was saying, she's like, you should earn your carbs. You don't need to have them all the time. So, and I think a lot of people don't understand what fats and carbs are. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to go get a salad. Okay, well, your salad's full of fat and carbohydrates, right? You got croutons in there and you got nuts and cheese and all this shit. And like, there's no real value to any of it. So you just ate 3,000 calories in this bowl of salad and you've eaten really no protein or anything. And one of the things that people don't understand too is that protein is a building block of muscle. If I want to build muscle, I need more protein. It's like saying, I want to build this building, but I don't want any of the bricks and I don't need any of the wood. It's like, well, how are you going to build the building then? So the carbs and fat are the fuel, and then the protein is what you need to build the muscle tissue.
Like, lose weight quickly. If they have an event coming up or something,
starve yourself.
Yeah, love it.
I know.
You heard it here.
I'll tell you what, because I mean, Chrissy could tell you this. Last year, and I help a lot of guys at my jiu-jitsu gym with like some of their diets and stuff. You have to cut weight quick. Right. So I was trying to cut down to like 190. I had to lose like 10 pounds. That week, I completely cut carbohydrates out of my diet. The carbs that I was eating, I was like eating a little bit of fruit, berries, and, some watermelon. And the night before my match, I was 2 pounds over still. That night, I ate an entire New York strip. And that's all I had. The next morning, I was 2 pounds under where I was supposed to be because it takes so much energy in your body to burn that steak and to utilize it as fuel. So because I was depleting myself and I wasn't drinking a ton of water, so I wasn't retaining water. And that morning I was like, all right, perfect. I'm good. I went for a little run just to get my heart rate up. I warmed up, but I was underweight. So people are like, oh, I have to starve myself. No, you just need to fuel yourself properly and you could get away with doing that. Like, for instance, anybody I've ever trained to do the New York City Marathon or any races, I think people still have this idea that they need to carbo load the night before, but you're just sitting on all those carbs. You're just going to store it all. If you're going to have carbs, have 2 hours before, and then you're going to slowly cycle them in every 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how you feel. But again, you see people in, doing a New York Roadrunners or one of these races, they'll go run 2-3 miles and then they'll go drink a gallon of beer afterwards or eat a bagel. And I'm like, you didn't really work that hard.
Yeah.
You were running for 20 minutes. Yeah. You don't need all those carbs.
Yeah.
I'd say somewhere between 30 and 40 grams of carbs, like before or after, is about what you need. And then from there, you really don't need as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I recently saw something about LeBron James and his diet and his timing of how he eats. And you would think, maybe not you, but I think a lot of people would think, oh, he's, waking up early, he's training all day, so he's probably eating a huge breakfast, and then he's going to train, and then he's going to practice, and he's eating. And he doesn't really eat his first meal until after all of that. So he'll have like a smoothie or something. He'll go do weights, then he'll do training, he'll do practice, and then he'll eat something like before the game, a few hours before the game, and then something after.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some level of hunger there. He's like kind of craving stuff, but he knows he doesn't need it. And some people, because you start to get into a slight version of ketosis there and you start to burn any fat that you have on your body. Now that's a cleaner form of fuel. It's the difference between like regular gas and high test. you're going to utilize that fuel a little bit better. You're going to feel better. Normally I don't eat anything. Like I'll wake up, I'll have a cup of black coffee. Sometimes I'll throw some MTT in it. I'll throw a little grass-fed butter in it just for brain functionality. I just feel better when I'm on that. And that'll be my breakfast. And then I didn't eat. I ate what, an hour ago, 2 hours ago was my first meal of the day. I haven't really had anything. And I felt great all morning. I've been up since 5 o'clock. So, you don't need as much as most people think they need.
I feel like with women though, it's a little tricky,
I know,
like hormones and stuff.
Yes.
I was a disaster today.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, because I woke up 5 hours of sleep because my travel schedule has been crazy. I was so tired. I just had matcha right away. So got that caffeine. So didn't really give myself a chance to like wake up. And then I had meetings and I didn't eat anything. And then I was like, oh, I need to work out before I get ready for the podcast and everything. And I didn't have any food. I had like a granola bar. Sure. So, but it had so much sugar. I had that. I had a workout. After the workout, I was like, I am going to pass away. Like, I feel like I'm going to die.
Well, that's another
I was in
time you want
days.
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrible. I thought I was going to pass out. So then I went and I got bacon and salmon.
Great. That's great. So,
and I was
then you feel
brought
better?
back to life. Yeah.
So like having the carbs before, listen, what I say having, a granola bar right before is, that if you're going to have a granola bar, that's the time you want to have it, and it'll get you through the workout. But I think you need to, I say this all the time. It's like peanuts. Peanuts are, comes from the earth. It's pretty normal. I could eat peanuts and drop dead. You can eat peanuts and it could be your favorite food. Everything's going to affect people differently. You just need to, and it's a lifelong journey that you need to figure out what works for you. So some people, some people love getting into a fasting state and not eating all morning. Does it work for everybody? No. Does it work for the people who enjoy it? Yeah. For me, I never really set out to do it. I'm just like, I'm not hungry. I don't really need to eat right now. And then I'll have like one big meal. So I had like 6 eggs and some turkey bacon. I enjoy eating that. I've now found, like I was telling you in the beginning when I was first starting this, I hated eating tuna out of the can. It's dry. It tastes like shit. Now I enjoy eating eggs. I look forward to eating eggs and turkey bacon and steak. Like those are the things I enjoy eating. I love eating watermelon. So like if I need carbs, I eat fruit. I eat a ton of fruit.
Second time I've heard you talk about watermelon.
You really love it. I love watermelon. Like summer's coming and
I know,
watermelon
it is
is
so
in
good.
season.
Yeah,
it's the best. But shitty watermelon's hard.
No, when it's like when it doesn't really have color.
Ugh.
And you can just tell that it's going to be,
It's gross.
no, you need like the really vibrant color ones that are like really
Sweet.
juicy and tart. Yeah,
I love
those
that.
are the best.
I love a good watermelon. I like oranges too. I'm a big orange guy.
Big orange guy.
Yeah.
What are your guilty pleasures? Do you have any?
As far as food goes, because we're talking about other stuff, I love smoking cigars. I know that's not great for me, but I have to have some outlet. Yeah, I'm a big donut guy. I love donuts. So there's this place right over between my apartment and the gym, and it's called Bear Donuts. And I've stopped in there more times than I'd like to admit and crushed a toasted coconut donut.
Oh, that sounds good.
Love a good coconut toasted donut. I like olive oil cake. That's great.
Oh my God.
There's a great little new steakhouse. Danielle Ballou just opened up a place on 24th and Park, and it's unbelievable. The desserts are amazing. I took a bunch of the girls there like a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, yeah, give us all the desserts. And I was like, oh, and we finished all of them. And I was like, all right, we're going to have to work this off now.
Yeah.
But one of my tricks and tips that I teach a lot of people, especially if you live in the city, go to restaurants downtown or uptown, depending on where you live, walk there and walk back, because a walk after your meal or before and after is one of the best things you can do for yourself. I feel instantly better. One of my favorite restaurants here in New York is Minetta Tavern. Every time I go to Minetta Tavern, I'll walk there. I'll have the burger or steak or something there, and then I'll walk back. And if I leave full, by the time I walk back home, I'm like, all right, I feel pretty good. I feel better than I did. Like, go on how your body feels. Like, you could listen to all the experts. I'm not an expert. I just happen to be doing this a long time. I've never worked in a lab, but my lab is the gym. I've spent 20 years now doing this with people. And I know what works for me. I use myself as a lab rat all the time, but I have thousands of clients that I've seen over the years that I know what works. I know what doesn't work. I know what makes you feel good. I know what doesn't make people feel good. So I work with that and I work off what I've seen over the course of the years. One of the things that I tell people all the time, I started to have a lot of my clients who were older, I treated them like they were younger and they love that. One, because it makes them feel better. And two, it's they need to be doing the same exercises that everyone else is doing. You need to get them into the patterns that they're going to be doing throughout their day. You want to make sure they could get themselves off the toilet. You want to make sure they could get themselves out of bed. And there are certain movements that you have to perform to get better at those things.
Is there anything that you used to believe about fitness that you've changed your mind on?
Yeah. When I was doing the CrossFit stuff, I was going hard all the time and I've broken myself. I've torn my shoulder, I screwed up my knees, my back, just because I was 30 years old, or 28 years old when I first started doing it. I'm like, I got to go hard. I got to go hard. And, I don't think you need as much of that. I think it's steady progress, do as much as you can, but with some constraints around it. Working with experts. I mean, I've been lucky enough that, like I said, one of my good friends is Don Saladino, who's, in my opinion, one of the best trainers. And he's worked with every celebrity there is, and there's a reason why. And I've gotten to pick his brain about 101 things, and we talk about that. And, Jordan Shallows is another guy who's been doing it forever, and Joe DeFranco's, these guys are all 10, most of them are like 10 years older than I am. And these are guys who've been doing it longer than I have, and they have more research than I have in the field. So I kind of learned from them, and I've been lucky enough for that. And then I've kind of just learned how my body works. When you're younger, you could get away with a lot more. But as you get older, if somebody tells me that they have back pain, I know what that feels like. I know what severe back pain feels like. I know what knee pain feels like. I didn't know what that felt like when I was 27, 28 years old. If I had an older client, they're like, I have back pain. I'm like, shut up, you're fine. But now it's like, I'm like, all right, let's address this because I know what that feels like, and let's take care of it.
How old are you?
42.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're back pain years old?
Well, I was 38 years old. It was like 2020. It was during the pandemic, and I got out of bed and I couldn't move.
Oh my God.
I thought I was paralyzed. I couldn't move.
That's terrifying.
Scared out of my mind. And I crawled out of bed and I'm laying on my back and I'm like literally couldn't use my legs. And I'm laying on the ground and I'm like, what the is wrong with me? I had no idea what was going on out of nowhere. And I read every book, John Sarno's book on back pain. I read multiple
That's the emotional pain one? Yeah.
And I think I was freaking out because it was the pandemic. I didn't know where my next dollar was coming from. I didn't know what was going on. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to move. And I did some stretches. I did everything I could do because I've definitely thrown my back out before, deadlifting too heavy and shit like that. So I'm doing everything I could. Over the course of the next 2 years, it just got progressively worse. Like I was buying only slip-on shoes and slippers because I couldn't bend down to tie my shoes. I couldn't sit. Like sitting like this would be so painful. I went to see doctors at HSS, Mount Sinai, NYU, and every doctor was like, oh, you need to fuse your spine. And I'm like, fuck out of here. So it sent me down this rabbit hole of like, how do I fix back pain? And it was so scary and so crazy. And I went doing this research, they were saying adults, male and female, over the age of 30 will have some degree of back pain. Like 70% of people will have some degree of back pain. And you're like, holy shit, this is wild. Yeah. And, whether it's stress induced or physical, like what I tell most people, I go, unless you've had blunt trauma to the back, I mean, we wouldn't have made it, thousands of years on this planet if we're this fragile of people. But what happens is over time, we're deconditioned, we're falling apart. You start to get older. There's maintenance that has to be done on your body, and you have to take care of it and slow things down and work different ways to get out of that. So it was definitely a chemical issue. It was neurological, and it was physical. So, and you have to work on all aspects of that. It's not just one thing.
Okay. What's one thing people should start doing and one thing people should stop doing?
One thing I think everybody should do is adopt a healthy lifestyle. Do something to improve wherever they are. I don't care who you are. I've interviewed professional bodybuilders, and I've interviewed people who've never worked out a day in their lives. And I think no matter where you are on the scale, you could always improve what you're doing and how you live. And one of the things I tell people that most people aren't doing enough of is creating great relationships, because I think that's such an important part of mental health as well as physical health. You just operate better when you know you have people around you who care about you. So I think one of the issues that we're going to tackle this year at my big expo that we do every year is creating better relationships. How do you could have a significant other, but don't cut everybody else out of your life because you have a significant other. And then one thing I think people should stop doing is stop getting so fucking offended by everything. If somebody's giving you some feedback, process that and be like, is it their fault they said it, or is it my fault that it bothers me?
Mic drop.
Boom.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having
so
me.
Fun.
This was awesome.
And
so
thanks for wearing the sunglasses with me.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave you alone. I didn't want you to feel like you were out there by yourself. So
I know. I appreciate it. Well, where can everybody find you?
At Kenny Santucci on social media, Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. And then Strong New York is September 27th, which is the biggest health and wellness expo in New York City.
Am I invited?
You have a free ticket.
Amazing.
You get a VIP ticket. So if you want to come, you're more than welcome to come. Anybody at Deer Media. So you guys are all welcome.
Thank you.
But it's a fun day. We have multiple workouts going on, everything from puppy yoga to kids classes and jujitsu and weightlifting. And then we have a main stage of education on everything from motivation, communication, and fitness. And then we have a full expo floor of like new brands and older brands and partners that we have here in the city. So we try to build up New York City businesses as well as kind of help some of the bigger brands kind of tackle whatever they're working on that year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.